How are you feeling? Good. I'm running Yankee today.
Yeah, you can put it up. Welcome, Rotarians and guests, to Fellowship Hall. President Scott is off this week. I feel maybe I should have taken my tie off to fill in properly. But I'm going to take you back to 1987 and 88 when I was last at this podium as president of Rochester Rotary. Ironically, my personal club theme that year, back in 1987, was Spread the Sunshine, an emphasis on our Sunshine Camp. And this year, as you can see on the banner, we are celebrating that 100th anniversary, and I've kind of come full circle. I find myself chairing the 100th anniversary committee for our camp. Everything, as you've heard over the past few weeks, is really falling into place for a wonderful year-long celebration. We are very, very excited. Also, as you see on the center screen, I am happy to report we have finalized plans for this year's Eastern Cities Fellowship Dinner. Rotary International President Shekhar Mehta and his wife Rashi will join us live April 19th at the Floriano Riverside Convention Center. Tickets are $75 a person. They will be limited to 250 people. This will allow us to serve a plated dinner to everyone. As you know, the staffing shortages and challenges in our restaurant industry. So we want to make this in the spirit of what this dinner has always been. So we may not have the numbers of people we've had in the past, but we will have the quality of environment. So don't miss out on this wonderful opportunity. 250 tickets will be available. A chance to greet our current international president and his wife. He was with us virtually last year for our Eastern Cities. Very anxious. I hope his schedule permits him to visit the camp. He was very intrigued to hear more about it, and we hope to share that with him on his visit April 19th. And with that, this meeting of the Rochester Rotary Club is now called to order. Please stand and remain standing after the pledge. Our invocation will be led by past President Peter Kelderhouse, a member of our club since 1980 and a good friend since 1980. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We started these meetings before. I used to say good morning, but it's good afternoon now. Don't walk behind me. I might not lead. Don't walk in front of me. I might not follow. Walk beside me and be my friend. Today we welcome Deb Rosen, CEO of the Levana Child Advocacy Center, as our guest speaker. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, it is our prayer this day that peace prevails in the Ukraine and Russian leaders cease the bombing by seeking peaceful resolutions. Here at home, it is our prayer that President Biden, as he addresses the nation, provides citizens with positive solutions to the problems we are facing. Heavenly Father, as the mask mandates are lifted, may we continue to follow the guidelines to protect those vulnerable to the COVID virus. We now ask that you protect our servicemen and women who continue to protect us from the seen and unseen enemies. Be with those absent from us this day. Keep them safe in your care. Bless the food we partake, the hands that have prepared this meal. And as always, and all we say and do, be to your honor and glory. To this we say amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Peter. You all may be seated as we introduce our Sergeant at Arms, Melanie Wolf. We're not sure what the song of the day may be, but she's a partner at Trivette Cristo, Rotarian since 2019, and we'll share our announcements, welcomes to guests. We do welcome you all to Fellowship Hall in the name of our gathering spot wherever we meet. We invite all of you who are guests to join us anytime, and Melanie will now introduce those guests and share some announcements.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to see such a full house here. So as Mr. Allhart was just telling us about our 100 years. So I saw everyone standing just a minute ago. I'd like everyone to do that again for me because this is for our 100-year committee and they have really been working hard. So everybody take a stand. Come on. All right, it's okay to wiggle. It is okay to wiggle. Come on, everyone. It's all right. This is something to celebrate. All right, I only see a few people wiggling. We do this until everybody does a little wiggle. Oh, that worked. All right, thank you. Thank you. That's amazing how many people wiggled to think they were going to have to stand for the next hour. As you will see on our tables, they have opened the store for the 100-year anniversary and the celebration. And, you know, despite Don trying to tell me otherwise, he wasn't here 100 years ago, but he knows just about everything that's happened in the last 100 years. And so please, everyone, support the store, support all of the things that are going on. They keep adding stuff literally every week. So just keep watching those emails and newsletters because it's going to be a great time. And I know everyone can make at least one of these. Okay, so there is a Living Roots private tasting at the end of March on the 31st. It will be $25 to participate. There are only 23 spots available. So this is like really, you know, you gotta get there. And this is gonna be a private tasting of our only urban winery. They'll be meeting at 5:30 and it's supposed to be a ball. And I've heard that they have had a few of these. We did miss our poker run. We will be doing Kenny Rogers again due to weather. But I'm hoping by March 31st, we're not getting snowed out of anything anymore. Yeah, I know it snowed on Mother's Day before. We'll just leave it at that. And then I was really excited because I don't think the soup cook-off was here when I first started at Rotary, and I love cook-offs. I don't actually cook, so I just go to eat. But I think these are really great. We're doing it on Saturday, April 2nd, and it's gonna be from 12:30 to 3. It's gonna be out at the Sunshine Camp, and you can sign up on the Rotary website. But look, this year, it's soup, chili, or dip. So this is right up my alley because I'm not really a big chili eater, but I love soup and I love dips. I mean, I can go through like a whole buffalo thing in, you know, like 20 minutes. So I'm gonna get there early at like 12:15 so that I make sure I can get everything that I think I need. And then everyone else can come at 12:30 and enjoy as well. But if you like to cook and you do good chili or you do good soup or dips, please, please, please enter. Everyone will really appreciate it. All right, we are now to our birthdays, which means you guys know I'm getting to the end and I'm gonna mess this up. For our two guests today, or there's three technically, but he's not really he's a former, so he's not a real guest. We do one clap after we say the name and the date of birth. So I was really confused for a long time, even when I started this. So on March 1st, we have Jim Galloway. Also on March 1st is Peter Stoller. On March 2nd is J.L. McVinney. March 3rd is Lydia Palmer. And March 4th is John Daniels. Don, did I do one of them wrong?
It might be McAvenny.
Oh, see, he's just now making it up. So I have to pay $1. He's just making this up now. So we have. I'm gonna let Dawn introduce two of our guests, but we do have one, and he's a former member. Peter, can you stand up for us? No, Peter, it says former member. Can we make that a current member again? I wish our president here. I wish President Scott was here. Peter, we love that you've joined us today. We hope you can come back and join us more often.
Thank you.
But thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
That's oh yeah, I left this one, but I'm gonna let Dawn introduce our speakers today. You don't need me for that. Again, 100th anniversary. Go into the store. They've got some really cool stuff, and it's very reasonably priced. So thank you, everyone.
All right, Kellyanne, I think we're going to need you for one change here. Our news is very brief today. There will be a substitute Rotarian anchor for the next 2 weeks as Mary and I journey to Aruba. I did mention the 100th anniversary of Sunshine Camp earlier. I want to recognize Tim Cook, for coordinating all of the news coverage of the announcement a week ago. Can we give Tim a salute? Round of applause. Now, it was covered by all the major media outlets. I managed to obtain a copy of one of those reports from one of the stations, which we'll share, but I do want to, before I share that, share with you a little apology on behalf of Channel 13. Sometimes you put something up on the web, and when I look at it, it looks a little misleading. And before they post the video of a story, sometimes they just grab a scene from the story and put it up on the screen, and then say, whatever the headline is. So we did that. They took a nice photo from Sunshine Camp and put it up on the screen. I think we can take a look at that right now. And it's so, as you see, Rochester Rotary Sunshine campers gear up for Centennial celebration, but it's two campers with bows and arrows aiming at something. And I'm not sure that's exactly, Tim, the impression we wanted to give as we were gearing up. It was kind of like saying you trespass on Sunshine Camp and you're going to get an arrow somewhere. So we don't have to. But we do have the story that we shared on Channel 13, and it came together very well. And again, because of Tim and Tracy and all of those that showed up at the convention center for that briefing, we were very pleased with the coverage and be able to share this. So we will share it with you now. We have to look at the commercial too, probably, before we go. All right. Don't you love those? Those commercials are longer than the stories you click on. You want to see a 20-second clip? Maybe not. Maybe we'll have it. Yeah, we have to wait for the ad here.
I don't know where the hole for this is.
Officially about 4 months away, but summer plans are already underway to celebrate a summer treasure in our community, the 100th anniversary of the Rochester Rotary Sunshine Camp. A special road rally, carnival, fun run, and more are just a few of the activities announced this morning to celebrate a camp that has served children with special needs for 100 years.
During its first summer in 1922, 60 children attended the camp. Today, the camp serves more than 2,500 children every summer.
Jake Snyder is one of those campers, a veteran of 12 years at Sunshine Camp.
I like to swim. We like to swim on the climbing wall, splash pad, radio, and just having fun. Just experience what that camp is really all about, is having fun and exploring new things.
We just know that he's just in a place where he can experience everything, and it's all adaptable to him and all of his peers. So there's nothing that's off limits. Everything he wants to try is accessible for everybody there, and it's just an amazing experience.
An amazing experience. One Rotarians are hopeful to share with campers from the past.
We also would love to get in touch with some of those folks that we, maybe attended the camp in the 40s or the 50s. We would love to reach out to us and let us know. We'd love to hear your camp stories as well.
Stories to share, just like Jake.
Yeah, I'm really excited to go back again. I'm happy that I'm on TV.
And we're happy to have you on TV, Jake. One of the highlights of this summer will be a special event at Locust Hill Country Club to celebrate the LPGA tournament that benefited the camp for many years. Stay tuned for the announcement of a very special guest of honor. All right, I think you probably all know by now that the special guest of honor, as you may or may not know, Nancy Lopez will be joining us on that Sunday, and we are very excited about that. So, all right, as I share a couple more news items here, the Dow right now is down 630 points, NASDAQ off 173, S&P 500 down 64, obviously the continuing worries over Russia and Ukraine. All right, the weather over the next 10 days. Today, 84, mostly cloudy. Thursday, mostly cloudy, 80. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the 10-day forecast for Aruba. I picked that up by mistake. Our forecast, 44 today, 38 degrees with snow tomorrow. Morning clouds on Thursday, 23 degrees. Next Tuesday, when all of you meet here, 38 degrees under mostly cloudy skies. Next Tuesday in Aruba, Sunny and 82. All right. Any other news before we introduce our speaker? I think, I've had a chance to share some news, and if you have anything you want to share or pay a fine or talk about your travels, Peter?
I'm going to pay a fine, but you're going to.
No.
I think you deserve a fine of $50 for your comment recently, which was just a couple minutes ago, and you can think about it.
I will pay the $50. I will pay that to the Sunshine Camp too for our 100th anniversary. Thank you for that. I don't feel Hank's not a past president, so I think I'm safe in not being fined here. I think.
Thank you. Well, I'll match the 50 just so we have 100.
Okay. Hey, great. Thanks.
And the other thing is, I just want to, on the flip side, I work on the Rotary International side, raising funds. And we're looking to get the number of first-time Paul Harris people up, like we did last year. I call it my March matching month. So, anybody interested, give me a call. It's a nice way, a quick way in some cases to get your first Paul Harris. If you're partly there, even faster. But there'll be newsletters about it, and we'll probably have a mailing as well. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? News to share? Family event? Something at work? You don't have to pay money necessarily, but we'll take it. If not, again, we thank you for sharing your comments today as well. Let's move on to our program now, the introduction of our speaker. Deb Rosen is the Executive Director of the Bavona Child Advocacy Center, providing critical services to children who've endured the trauma of physical and sexual abuse, as well as children who have witnessed violent crime or survived the homicide of a family member. In partnership with 23 local organizations, Bavona provides an integrated response to child abuse from investigation all the way through the prosecution, and then beyond that, the process of healing after the conclusion of prosecution. Deb has served as Executive Director since 2017. She holds undergraduate and graduate degrees in social work from the University of Wisconsin. She is married to Larry Marks, also an advocate for children and a proud parent of 2 teenage girls. Please welcome today's speaker, Deb Rosen. Deb.
Well, thank you for that lovely introduction. I'll tell you, I've been to some Rotary meetings, and this is by far and away the most entertaining. So you guys are really doing it right. I'm glad to see, and I will be back. So thank you so much for having me. I always appreciate the opportunity to come talk about what Bavona does in our community. I am particularly grateful and excited to do that today because this is, I was saying to Jamie on the car ride over here, this is one of my first gigs like this in 2 years. So thank you so much for making this space available and for making the time available. So I'll be talking a little bit about what Bavona does. I'd like to share some information with you about a really sort of critical, important event that happened in our community last year and how Bavona has responded to that. I'd love to talk with you about how we've sort of navigated the pandemic, which has been very challenging for us, but we've gotten through. But I do want to say you are welcome to raise your hand and ask a question or make a comment at any point. It's a very informal kind of thing, and I'm really interested to respond to your, oops, sorry, I just did something official, but I didn't I guess now. or maybe I need to pay a fine, I don't know, something like that.
Angel got his wings.
Great, I'm glad to be a part of that. So as Don shared with you, Bavona Child Advocacy Center is a nonprofit organization based right here in Rochester. We're right in the heart of the South Wedge at 1 Mount Hope Avenue in a historic building that you are all welcome to come visit, an absolutely beautiful building. And we provide services to children who have experienced physical abuse, sexual abuse, and other very severe traumas in their families and their communities. So we are deeply involved with some of the most vulnerable children in our community and their families. And before I talk about the sad part of that, let me really just say that it is truly a privilege to be involved with children in this way, and to be a part of helping them through some of the very toughest moments of their lives into a place where they are safe and they are able to start healing from their trauma. So a lot of times when I tell people that I work at Bavona, they're like, oh God, how do you do that? That sounds so incredibly hard. Let me just say it is a joyful experience to work at an organization that helps children in such powerful and important ways. And I really do consider it my privilege, and I know that my coworkers feel that way too. So Bavona is actually quite a small nonprofit. We have, in a couple weeks, we will have hired our 32nd employee. So we have 32 people. We have a budget of just over $3 million. We are governed by an independent board of directors. So we're like a pretty small nonprofit, but we've got a big responsibility. And so the way that we rise to the challenge of our responsibility is that we work in partnership with, as Don said, 23 local organizations that form a team, and together we provide services to about 2,000 children per year. So 2,000 children every year from Monroe County, walking through our doors, having experienced extreme traumas of the type that I described earlier. As residents of Monroe County, we all need to get our heads and our hearts around that reality, that there is such a significant demand for the services of an organization such as Bavona. Our partners include all of the different jurisdictions of law enforcement in Monroe County. We include the Monroe County District Attorney's Office. We have medical partners from Golisano Children's Hospital. We have advocacy partners from the Restore program of Planned Parenthood. We partner with Monroe County Department of Human Services Child Protective Services team. We have multiple partners who provide mental health services. So it's a big, very multidisciplinary group of people who all sit under one roof on Mount Hope Avenue. And so we are able to work with each other in a very seamless, very sort of comfortable way. And we have legal agreements with one another, and this is very important, so that we are able to share information about the children we're serving. So you know how you go to the doctor and you need to go to a specialist and you have to jump through a million hoops so that the doctor that you went to can talk to the specialist you want to go to, and it all takes a while? Well, you can imagine that in something as complex as a child abuse investigation, in which there are many, many different entities that have some formal part, that there would be a lot of barriers to communication. The beauty of a child advocacy center is that we have legal agreements with one another so that we can talk with one another freely and exchange information. And in fact, we are sitting side by side with our partners who are sharing the same mission and providing the same service to children. It's a very special and unique sort of format of service delivery. I've been a social worker for almost 30 years, working largely in the field of child welfare, and I can tell you that never have I come across a model like a child advocacy center in which the disciplines truly work so organically and so integrally with one another. And that is how we're able to do our work. We couldn't do it alone as a little nonprofit. Child Protective Services couldn't do it alone themselves. Law enforcement couldn't do it alone themselves. It takes all of the contributions from the different perspectives of those different agencies to do what we do for children. What we do, just so you have sort of a picture of what happens under our roof, is we conduct a multidisciplinary investigation into allegations of child abuse. So children come to us through Child Protective Services or through law enforcement or through a referral from a school or some other community partner. And our team of professionals together, following the rules, regulations, and policies of their respective disciplines, all conduct a very tightly facilitated investigation. and along the way provide services to children and families so that they are not re-traumatized by the experience, and so they are getting what they need in their homes and in their communities during the course of the investigation. Many of the children who we provide services to in the investigations area go on to receive mental health services from our team of mental health providers. This is actually a relatively new area of expansion for Bavona. Over the course of the last about 2.5 years, we have very purposefully expanded the mental health services that we provide to children and to their caregivers, so that over the course of 2 years, we provided mental health services to about 1,000 children, which is really exciting. We went from providing mental health services to a tiny number of kids to a really large number of kids, and we're really excited about that. What the research tells us, and this is some really good news, is that even if a child experiences a horrible trauma of the type that we're talking about, sexual abuse, physical abuse, homicide, even in the face of such a horrible trauma, if they get the right kind of help at the right time, they are absolutely able to recover and go on to live happy, healthy, productive lives, just like you and I want for our children and our grandchildren and the children in our communities. We can expect that for children who have experienced trauma, but the trick is that they need to get the help they need at the right time. So in recognizing that, we made a decision in 2018 and 2019 to invest some very significant resources and grow our mental health services for kids. And I'm very excited to say that that is going really well as we speak today. Any questions before I go on about the types of services that we provide at Bavona? Yeah, go ahead.
Approximately how long, or on average, are children within your service, stay within your service?
It's a really great question, and it's an unusual kind of answer that I'm going to give to you. Anywhere from 1 day to, I would say, 1 year. So for kids who we provide services with for 1 day, we will conduct a facilitated investigation, and all of that work will be accomplished literally in 1 day, literally in one visit to our facility. We will assess that the child and family have what they need to move on with their lives. Maybe we'll make some referrals for them in the community, and they will make the choice that they're gonna sort of take it on their own. And we really may just have that one contact with the family. Other families are more complicated for a wide variety of reasons, having to do with their needs, but also having to do with the criminal justice process. Not all of the crimes that we see are prosecuted. Not all of those crimes go through trial. Those that do require a lot of help and support from our team. And so we will quite literally hold hands with that child and their family through the duration of the criminal justice, the resolution of the criminal justice process, which, as I'm sure you all know, can unfortunately take a while. So it's a big range. And I can't even give you an average because it wouldn't be, yeah.
I was just trying to get a perspective.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that basically, is there a lot of times when you just use removal of the situation or something that can be done to mitigate future?
Absolutely. So there certainly are children who are removed from their families, but that's a decision that's made by Child Protective Services in the family court system. And there are certainly instances in which that decision is made during the course of our involvement with a family. And so we may be introduced to a child who's living in one living situation when we first get to know them, and then we may see them sort of make their way through the foster care system over the course of us providing care for them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure, sure.
If I'm hearing this correctly, is the geography kind of bounded to Monroe County?
It really is. So we do provide some services to children in a couple of contiguous counties. We provide some services to children in Wayne County and some services to children in Livingston County, but the vast lion's share of the service that we provide is for children in Monroe County. The reason for that is that most communities of really any size at this point actually have their own child advocacy centers. There are 43 child advocacy centers in the state of New York alone. There are upwards of 900 child advocacy centers across the country. So Bavona is our community's child advocacy center. Wayne County, as an example, had just launched its own child advocacy center less than a year ago. We're supporting them in all sorts of ways. There's a wonderful child advocacy center in Ontario County called the CAC of the Finger Lakes, etc. Sure.
I'm not sure I want to know the answer to part of this, but how many children on a yearly basis are affected by abuse, and what percentage of those children are you able to address?
That's an excellent question. Monroe County, for a good 5 years now, has had a pretty steady state of about 10,000 referrals for child abuse a year. Yeah. So that's child abuse, that's child neglect, that's physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, educational neglect, medical neglect, all of the forms of child maltreatment. All of those referrals for concerns of abuse and neglect go into the Monroe County Child Protective Services system. Only those referrals that regard serious physical abuse and sexual abuse come to Bavona. So we see roughly 20% of the total of Monroe County's referrals. Yeah, it's a big number, guys, and it's a number that, in my experience, once you get it in your head, you sort of can't get it out of your head, because these are children in your community and my community, and we need to be very concerned about their well-being. Yeah, sure.
The data collected when you're investigating these cases, working with the police departments, the data collected, interviews, is this used in potential criminal cases?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, so we provide a very specific kind of interview called a forensic interview, which is a model of non-suggestive, non-leading investigation of criminal matters that are used with children and also with adults under other circumstances. We actually digitally record those interviews so that law enforcement professionals and other professionals working on the case can draw from the material that we sort of uncover during the course of the interview. In New York State, those recordings are actually not permissible as evidence. However, the notes that a law enforcement professional makes while watching the interview would be permissible, for instance, as evidence. So it is very much the case that actually all of the material that's discovered during our investigatory process will fuel a criminal case. And will fuel a case in family court, so a non-criminal civil case that plays out in family court that usually has bearings on the issue of custody that somebody else raised. So, yeah. Other questions? Okay. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what we're doing in the area of prevention. And I have really come to the conclusion that any organization that is serving a real community need and a social crisis of the form of child abuse has what I would describe as a moral obligation to also provide prevention services in that arena. And Bavona has, for many years, sort of wondered, what do we really want to do in the prevention space? First of all, what prevention has been proven to be effective? And second of all, where does Bavona fit into the delivery of those services? And several years ago, we reached the decision that what we really wanted to do was provide prevention education in schools. So this is education directly to students of all ages about what they can do to keep themselves safe from interpersonal dangers, not only including child abuse, but including things like bullying and domestic violence and digital dangers, those types of concerns. We worked for a long time to identify an appropriate partner that had a curriculum that we felt terrific about, and we began talking to Monroe County school districts about this material and our desire to connect with their students and their staff. A couple of school districts were really excited about that and said right away, absolutely, we'd love to do that. This is a shout out to the Spencerport School District. If any of you are connected to the Spencerport School District, truly progressive, forward-thinking administration that has embraced this work wholeheartedly. But, you know, we were a little surprised that more school districts were not interested in taking advantage of this. They felt that maybe they were already doing similar work, or they felt that maybe it wasn't necessary, or they didn't quite understand where it fit. And so we continued to have these difficult conversations. And then, as I'm sure you all read, a principal in the Hilton School District was exposed for having allegedly sexually abused dozens of his students. That disclosure was made during the course of our prevention education work in the Hilton School District. We had an educator that was working with the Northwood Elementary School at that time, and a little boy went home after one of the lessons and disclosed sexual abuse to his mother, perpetrated by his principal. That allegation very quickly unfolded into a really wide-scale investigation. We had incredible partnerships with law enforcement, just absolutely astoundingly effective work done by law enforcement in this. And we talked to many, many dozens of young people. I'm talking little kids, you know, kindergarten through 4th grade, resulting in the indictment on 27 counts of sexual abuse of children. Well, a tragedy, without question. A tragedy in the lives of these children, a tragedy in the lives of their families, a tragedy in the life of anybody who has any type of emotional connection to the Hilton community, which is a very small, close-knit community with a really strong, sort of closely held cultural identity. This hit really, really hard. But I do want to tell you that there was a silver lining to that. And in my mind, it's a very important silver lining. And that is that it got the attention of school administrators who said, geez, you know that abuse prevention education program you were talking to us about? Do you think you could maybe bring that to our district? And we said, absolutely, of course we can. We formed a really terrific business relationship with BOCES of Monroe County that facilitated a type of agreement so that all of the school districts that wanted to be involved could be involved. And so that Bavona was actually able to be paid for its work. I will tell you, there are a lot of CACs out there, a lot of organizations out there doing this education work for free because they can't figure out a business relationship to get themselves paid for it. That's not to toot my own horn at all. That is really to toot the horn of our local BOCES that was forward thinking enough to say, this is something we really need to bring to scale, and we're gonna figure out how to flow some state money in to support it. So kudos to them. So today, I sit with you just exactly about a year later and can tell you that we are providing our abuse prevention education in 16 Monroe County school districts, several private schools, a couple of school districts in contiguous counties that just asked really politely, and so we said, okay, yes, we'll come to the education. It is an absolutely joyful way for us to spend our time and our resources, to be going out to schools, talking to children as young as kindergarten and all the way up through 12th grade. We're working with the big kids too, and talking with them in very plain language about how to keep themselves safe and how to identify adults that are truly safe. Not safe because somebody else told you they were safe, but safe because you know from your own experience that they are safe, and how to tell your story if something is happening that's confusing to you or frightening to you so that you can get help. We do see many disclosures of abuse come from this work. Many children go to their teacher or their guidance counselor or their school psychologist or our staff after their lessons, and they say, "You're a safe adult. I need to tell you something that's happening to me." That is worth its weight in gold. That is what prevention really looks like. So it used to be that Bavona for many years had one prevention sort of specialist role in our little agency, and we really struggled around how to get funding even to support that one person. And it was a dilemma, I'll be honest with you. When I first came into the role in 2017, it was a real dilemma. Our board of directors, and by the way, one of our board members is right here in the room, Jen Lake. Jen Lake is not only one of our board members, but she's actually our incoming board chair, our current vice chair, Jen Lake from APVI Goodwill, wonderful partner. So our board of directors agreed with me. They were like, we got to figure this out. So we went from having just one staff person, we now have a team of 6 people, fully funded, who are working across this community providing prevention education. If that is not a satisfying story, I don't know what is. And I can tell you as a leader, it has just been such an incredible experience to watch this work unfold. And it's a good lesson about how we need to take advantage of opportunities, even if they feel awful in the moment. And certainly what happened in Hilton felt absolutely awful, but what has come out of it is very, very important. Any questions about our work in schools? Yeah.
So I love that you're doing preventative and it's getting people thinking and children thinking and talking. So is this something that you're going to be doing annually, every year, or
Yeah.
coming back every couple years?
Yeah, we come back every year. So the way the program works is that we provide 2 lessons per school year, every school year. So that the children who started it in kindergarten are going to get it every year. And what's really beautiful about it is that the curriculum uses it's 5 very basic principles of safety. And they use essentially the same language to describe those same principles year after year after year, but they talk about it in the context of developmentally appropriate scenarios. So what's developmentally appropriate for a kindergartner is different than a 3rd, 8th, 12th grader. So it's progressive in that way. Yeah. Yeah.
So hypothetically, can you give an example if a child came forth with some issue and reported it either to someone on your staff or a teacher, let's say, what's the first step? Where does that person go to report?
Yeah. It's a wonderful question. Let's use the example of a teacher because that's a very common scenario. So let's say a child discloses to a teacher or another school personnel that somebody at home is hurting them and touching them inappropriately. That teacher has a couple of different options. That teacher can call the state hotline for child abuse, which is a 1-800 number, and report that directly. And as a matter of fact, the teacher is ultimately going to be required to do that. That can be their first call, or if they have questions about how to do that, or questions about what they've just heard, they can call Bavona and talk to our intake specialist. So we have sort of a triage function at Bavona. That intake specialist will talk through what the process is going to look like and will actually help them make the call to the state central register if that's something that they need to do. That in an instance of an allegation of sexual abuse, the hotline, which is based in Albany, will refer that call back to the CPS team that's based at Bavona because it's a sexual abuse concern. And then that case will be investigated in the multidisciplinary fashion that I spoke about earlier. We also see a significant amount of concern about sexual assault and sexual abuse, which is perpetrated not by a parent or caregiver, but by a peer, by a coach, by a church member, by a non-related adult. Those cases are actually referred to law enforcement instead of Child Protective Services. And it's a similar sort of scenario, that the call is made to the local jurisdiction of law enforcement. And if it's a case of sexual abuse, that law enforcement jurisdiction will investigate the case at Bavona and will do the multidisciplinary investigation. Sure.
Yeah. Do these cases of sexual abuse run across the whole gambit of our society,
Yeah.
in terms of economics and all the other factors?
Absolutely. So, you know, unfortunately, child sexual abuse is absolutely an equal opportunity evil. So we see 2,000 children from Monroe County. About half of those children come from the city of Rochester, and the remaining half come from the towns and villages, from the suburbs of Rochester. That statistic, that division between urban and suburban, is quite steady year after year after year. We've seen that really since our inception in 2004. What we know is that child sexual abuse is, by and large, really with very few exceptions, committed by people who a child knows very well, trusts very much, who a child often loves very much. And when you think about the life of your children or your grandchildren, it makes sense, because the people who we let into our children's life are people who we know well and who we trust well and who children have a great deal of enthusiasm for. And so that we know that sexual abuse is a crime of opportunity, and it is a crime that thrives in secrecy. And you see the scenario where both opportunity and the veil of secrecy really exist within family systems and within other sort of relationships that are protected from outside view. We see about 60% girls and about 40% boys. So many people think that child sexual abuse is something that only girls experience, but really fully 40% of the children we see are boys. We see an extremely diverse array of racial and ethnic backgrounds in the children who we see, with about 40% of the children we see being white and about 60% being people of color. So it really runs the gambit. Race, culture, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, geography. This is something that really impacts all communities. Yeah.
How did you navigate the dynamics of pandemic where the child is locked home with a predator? There is no chain of contacting the counselor, maybe remotely, but you know, not face-to-face contacting the teacher, counselor, or another individual. They're basically locked in that environment. Did you see a spike in the number of cases or unreported cases? We saw a bit of both. So, and this is true not only at Bavona, but really true of child advocacy centers across the country. There's actually been a good amount of research already that's come out about what happened during the pandemic. So what we saw in the early months of the pandemic, like those, you know, the March, April, May, June, really sort of dark months where things were really locked down, is that our numbers went way down. And it was scary because we knew that abuse was happening, and we knew that the dynamics of abuse were not changing, and we were not hearing from those kids and families. Beginning in about July, however, our numbers shot way up. And from July through the end of the first year of the pandemic, the first calendar year of the pandemic, our numbers were up, if I'm remembering correctly, about 15%. Is that right, Jamie? About 15%. And I will tell you that what was driving those numbers were physical abuse cases. So really, really sad to say. So physical abuse cases were continuing to come in because those kids were actually getting treatment at doctors' offices and in the hospitals, and we were getting called about them.
We also saw a good number of cases that came in because from children that were receiving some sort of mental health counseling. And children were disclosing their abuse to mental health counselors who they were seeing through telehealth. And so the telehealth system, that sort of like infrastructure, which built itself up really quickly in response to the pandemic, was actually quite effective in helping kids access services. But yeah, those first few months were really very scary because we knew, of course, we knew from years of experience that nothing was changing, and yet we weren't seeing those kids. Yeah.
With your presentations at schools and hopefully earlier intervention, do you anticipate, obviously, earlier intervention, but also possibly bringing the numbers down because more things will be discovered at an earlier stage?
We really hope for that. What we know is that prevention and early intervention of any kind takes a number of years for them to be sort of a cumulative effect that would drive numbers down. What we actually expect is that our numbers are going to go up before they go down. And I think that we've started to see that a bit from the disclosures happening in schools. So our team is very aware of the school districts that we're working in. Our law enforcement partners who work in those school districts are very aware of the work we're doing, and they are prepared for an increase in numbers as a result of disclosures in schools. So it'll take a while. It could even take a generation before we started seeing those numbers go down, but absolutely that's what we hope for.
I'm sorry to cover the last question. You know our focus for children with special needs. Do you see them going through your system potentially more than they should?
I'm so glad you asked that question because I wasn't going to raise it, but I'm really happy to raise it. So we do some very special work with children with intellectual and developmental disabilities. You may or may not know that children with intellectual and developmental disabilities are at about 6 times greater likelihood to experience some form of abuse. This is an absolutely tragic reality for the most vulnerable children. We are in the process of working with our partners who wrote the curriculum that we provide. It's an organization called the Monique Burr Foundation, which is located in South Florida. We are in the process of actually revising the curriculum in schools so that it is fully accessible for children with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We're piloting those lessons right now. We're getting really great feedback, and we're really excited to be able to roll that out. We will roll it out locally, but the Monique Burr Foundation will roll it out nationally. So children with developmental disabilities will be able to receive really high quality prevention education.
Thank you.
Deb, because of my involvement with National Center,
yeah.
What role are you playing with the parents in terms of parents' education as opposed to just the children?
Yep, that's a great question. So the way the curriculum works is that there is sort of the main curriculum, which is for children. There is an administrator's sort of version of that work, and there's a parent version of that work. So we have parent meetings at the outset of every school year in pretty much all the districts where we work. The lessons include every lesson has a parent letter that gets sent home. Parents have information about our educators and are able to access them directly. So there's a pretty good interface with parents. And we do hear from parents, actually. We do get some really nice feedback from parents. Parents who, for instance, there may be a history of child sexual abuse in the family, and they want to know how they can, reinforce the lessons at home in a way that feels safe and non-threatening, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Are you giving me the hook?
One last question.
Yeah, your funding, does that come from our tax dollars or private?
That's a great question too. Thank you. About 60% of our funding comes from the community, from individuals, companies, corporations, foundations. About 40% of our funding, getting a little closer to 50, comes from your tax dollars, comes from local and state government. which I think is appropriate given the critical nature of these are not optional services we're providing. These are truly life-saving services. So we have funding from Monroe County, from BOCES, which is state education money, from a couple different departments within New York State. That's our governmental share. And then we work really hard to raise money from generous individuals such as yourselves. We throw big parties that some of you may have been to. We have one very important party coming up on March 12th, which is our annual gala. Registration is still available. Ask me if you're interested. It is a really, really fun time supporting a great cause. So we actually have several different fundraising events through the years. And we continually work to grow the community of individuals that want to support our work. And we have found the Monroe County community to be incredibly generous and thoughtful in supporting our work.
I won't go look at you behind the button.
No, just thank you. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for caring about this issue. It is an issue that many people want to just want to put their fingers in their ears and close their eyes to. And I understand that once you hear about this, once you see it, you can't really unsee it. And so if you want to talk to me about what we're doing at Bavona, absolutely look me up. I'm here. I have my business cards, and I would love to hear from any of you. So thanks so much.
Hang on 1 second there before you go too far. Thank you so much. I think this has probably been one of the most informative meetings we've had in some time, calling attention to something, a very real need in our community, how it's being challenged, and the support you're offering. And we thank you so much for that. Jamie Anderson, your guest and a co-worker with you, you've referred to her a couple of times. We didn't formally introduce her, so welcome as our guest here today. We're certainly glad to have you here as well. We have a couple of gifts to share as our speaker. Have you been to our Sunshine Camp?
I have not.
All right, you have to go out to our Sunshine Campus. We have talked so much, and there are so many needs being met in different ways out there. The sensory center and other things that I think you would really enjoy seeing. One of the things also, as you look out on our Sunshine Campus, are the maple trees, and we have been able to harvest all of the syrup from those maple trees and bring it to you. So we will present you with the maple syrup.
Thank you.
Also, we want to let you know that we have adopted school number 8 in the city.
Oh, that's great.
And as part of that, we furnished our library with a book every week signed by our speaker. You'll see your picture in there, little bio, and we ask you to sign that so that we can give it to Roberto Clemente School number 8. So we thank you so much.
I'll take your pen.
Take the pen. We'll do all set for you. And again, another round of applause for Deborah Rosen. Thank you so much. Couple of notes, upcoming meetings. I'm kind of, I said I'm going to be away for 2 weeks, but I wish I was here. We'll be back here at Oak Hill Country Club the next 2 weeks. Monroe County Executive Adam Bello will be the speaker next week. Rochester Mayor Malik Evans will be the speaker the week after that. So I'm missing 2 very important meetings, but I hope all of you will be here, and it's great to see pretty much a full house here again as well. We thank you all for joining us today. I thank President Scott for letting me fill in for him, and I leave you with our thought for the day from Henry Ward Beecher, and it is this: children are the hands by which we take hold of heaven. Meeting adjourned.